recording. I mean, I don't need to announce it. Somebody else will.
So I wonder if this is like a legal thing or what the deal is.
Probably.
I don't know. I wish there was a way to turn it off, though. I mean, we announce it. Do you want to check your mushroom footage?
Find it first. Oh, there it is. Randomly clicking on one. This one is a little bit disturbing.
More so than last week?
More than last week.
More than last week?
Just different.
Wow.
Just different.
Went for the shock and awe.
How many have we done? I feel like I've run through all of them. Let's see.
You couldn't have possibly.
See, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We're on week 7.
Week 7. Okay. Gotta find one.
I feel that way about the embroiders of the week. Like, I just don't know if it's because I've looked at them so many times that each week when I go and see a new one, I'm like, I think I showed that already.
Show them over again. People aren't going to remember.
But this week is special. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I don't think we've seen this one.
No, we did not.
Yeah, but that looks cool.
Yeah, right?
This looks good.
What is the time frame of this? Like in this growth? Like, is this a week, a day?
It's probably over 3 days
Wow.
at the most. Oh, look, that one has a deformity. Oh,
It's still special.
yes. Do you see which one I'm talking about?
I do. It's peeling. Oh no, the top one, I see it. It's,
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
That one. Okay. This is a minute and something. Cool. Back to the
Were they
beginning.
growing out of it like a ice chest or something?
Probably
Like a
growing in
lab?
like a bucket or like a plastic bin.
It's frozen. Is it frozen for you?
Yeah, it's frozen. Or
Okay.
I think Jaime was just trying to close it out.
Now I gotta find the book.
Oh yeah.
So everything's open. Open recent. Here it is. Lauren last week texted that the text was kind of small, but I didn't see it because I'm not watching the chat while I'm.
Do you want me to text you if was she probably if she did a direct message then I wouldn't know it. Cuz I didn't see that.
Right, yeah.
I got to plug my computer in.
Yeah, maybe zoom in a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I read from the book for that reason because it's kind of a strain on my eyes.
I have to tell you that when I've read too, sometimes I like to read from the book too, because what I have a hard time is sometimes the line length is so long that I get lost coming back. I don't know where, like on Tuesdays sometimes, like especially in Word documents, I don't know why I have trouble.
What page are we on?
We are on
I'll tell you.
14, 15.
17.
216?
16.
Well, 216 is the image.
Okay.
Okay, so Emily was using something else, huh? It was like a sort of a web-based sort of.
I think she was using like the
Oh, right.
Kindle document.
I think it was Kindle.
Yeah, which like spreads out the pages
spreads it
over.
out, yeah.
Yeah.
But it changes the numbers.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. So, but
Yeah.
it was easier to read.
Could change the size of it, but I don't know. Let me see something. If I make my window bigger,
Well,
can
that's
you go to
the,
another?
the weird thing is you can, like, if you go to viewing options, you can do like the different percents, but sometimes it's weird. Like when
It
Jaime
throws it
moves-
off the page though.
Yeah, if Jaime moves, it like your own interpretation of where it is gets
Right.
really thrown off.
It does.
So this always confuses me. So when I go into full screen, then it stops the sharing or it pauses it. Bring your shared window to the front.
Yeah, because it's behind. It's like I can move the whole PDF now all of a sudden. Something weird. Can you, anybody else move it?
No.
Stop the share and then basically it has to be in full screen mode. to begin with. And then now we're in it, right?
Yeah.
And if we wanted the text to be bigger,
See, I can't see the text now. Oh, no, I can.
That seems good.
Yeah.
or even bigger.
No, bigger makes it kind of pixelated for me.
That seems like a good one.
That's good. Okay, and then I just have to scroll more. There's more
Yeah.
scrolling involved.
Yes. Scroll management. Yeah, it seems good.
Okay.
Right. We ready?
Is Lauren still not?
She said she was going to be a little bit late, but
Okay.
she is gonna join.
Okay. I'm ready when anybody else is.
I am ready.
Jaime, we ready?
Yeah, am
I
I
will
sharing
say,
right now or no?
no, I'll do the introduction stuff first, but just so you all know, Cindy, my blood sugar's going down. So after I do my thing, if it goes really down, I'm gonna just pause my video to drink sugar, but I'll be right back. I'll be here.
You start slurring your words.
Right.
I'll announce that you're not drinking.
I've been studying for my wilderness first responder. So there's it's for remote location. So this is kind of a remote location.
Well, the good news is Cindy can find me on her phone and see. Yeah, it's just starting to go down, but I tricked the system a little bit and took a little bit too much sugar because I got tired of being so high. So, yeah. Okay, we should start.
All right. All right, here we go.
Hey, Diego.
Hey, Diego.
Hi, everyone.
Hello and welcome.
Roland. That's like a whole new crowd.
So while we are letting people in, as we're all slowly trickling in, I will start with this evening and talk about this week's embroidery of the week. And I want to preface, there are no favorites. I love each and every single one of them. Each week, it's a delight to select the one, but I'm just wowed by the next level that this one went to. And I'm excited to present Walker's Common Raven. And what she did was not only tie-dyed the fabric, but then I just wanted to point out all this extra like embroidery. I'm not putting pressure on anybody. I'm just simply saying it's just lovely. And I was very excited to share it because it was just so unique. So this is this week's embroidery of the week. And I will start as we're still waiting for people to sign in, we'll just do an introduction. So I'm Jen, and I'm calling in from Studio City, and I use she, her pronouns. And tonight, I will be working on this embroidery. And I will pass it to Izzy.
Hello, sorry. My name is Izzy. My pronouns are she, they, and I just moved. So tonight I'm actually going to be building a shelf, putting together a shelf as my mending. And oh, my background. My background are these crazy fungi spores that I found on Google Images, and I really liked them. So I thought they were fitting for this chat today. And yeah, that's my mending, and my friend is here, who has a face mask but is joining us tonight from Atlanta. So we're here. It's Faye. And I'll pass it to Millie if Millie hasn't gone yet.
I don't think, can anybody hear Millie?
No, I can't hear Millie.
She's not muted, but.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm Millie. I'm in the garden. My husband is currently grilling dinner outside, and so I'll be reading along with the book, and I'll be harvesting a salad while I'm also listening to everybody else. I go with, my pronouns are she and her, and I will pass it along to Diego. Hi, Diego.
Hi, Melly. My name's Diego. I'm right now in Los Angeles, California. I use he, him pronouns. Today I'm going to be working on this drawing that at some point will become an embroidery pattern. And I will pass it to James.
Hey everybody, I'm James, he, him pronouns, calling in from downtown Los Angeles, and I will also be the screen doesn't really work, but partaking in reading the book tonight. Also, Diego, I wanted to say we found a killdeer yesterday at the studio. I don't know if I'm saying that right or if that's unspecific, but it's a bird.
Sorry, I just couldn't hear the last part of what you said. I heard that you found a killdeer, but then I didn't hear the rest.
Yeah, we found a killdeer. I don't know if that's the right term for the bird, but it was very rare apparently.
Oh, yeah, killdeer are really cool. They love nesting. And I mean, did you find it on a nest?
Yeah, it was nesting in our floodplain circle. It was really cool.
Yeah, they love like gravel like that.
Awesome.
They're really cool. They're shorebirds.
Cool. I will pass it to Emily.
Hi everyone, Emily calling in from Echo Park, neighborhood of Los Angeles with my dog Bucky. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm just gonna be listening tonight and enjoying your company and brushing my dog's hair. And let me pass it to Sheila. Are you muted, Sheila?
Hello, hi, I'm back. I'm Sheila. I live in Highland Park. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm just came back from working on a food bank at a food bank in the Riverside Drive, Fletcher area, and we feed over 200 families. And I'm working on nothing right now. Thank you. And I'll pass it on to, let's see, Aaron.
Hello, my name is Aaron. I go by he, him pronouns. I am calling from South Pasadena. I'm about to drop off something at a FedEx office. After that, I will be driving home and listening in. And I pass it on to Cindy.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I'm calling in from West Covina, and I will be working on this bird that I have completed the leaves, but I haven't touched the actual bird. And I will pass it on to Chaya.
Hello, my name is Chaya. My pronouns is he, she, her, hers. I live in Canada. I'm with my daughter at home at the moment. What should I mend today? my English. I need a better English, I think. So thank you. And I will pass it to Roxanne Steinberg.
Hi, I have a mouthful of apple, and I'm in Venice. She, her pronouns, and I'm going to do a bunch of things. I'm going to mend some clothes, and maybe I'm going to knit, and I'm going to listen. And I pass it on to, I don't know who went or who didn't go, so maybe I pass it back to Jen and then she can throw the ball somewhere else.
Actually, I will begin, and if you didn't have a chance to introduce yourself, there'll be more time in the evening to do that and share what you're working on. The Metabolic Studios Learning and Mending series is now in its 4th evolution. This time around, we are addressing disturbance ecology and what emerges in the blasted landscapes of capitalism. To do this, we will be collectively reading Anna Tsing's The Mushroom at the End of the World on the possibility of life in capitalist ruins. Growing through the last 3 gatherings, the first learning syllabus in response to ongoing racial violence, particularly at the hands of the police, the second holding space for the megafires that consume the West, and the third addressing the larger reality of suffocation and the need for us to revive our breath. In order to get a deeper understanding of these crises and how they are interconnected, we are building upon the readings in the last 3 series. Many of you have received embroidery kits from us of native plants representing the food and medicine that Metabolic Studio is cultivating. We are adding some new embroidery patterns. We also have more native plants and bird patterns available too. The theme of all the embroideries we've been working towards is biosynosis, which is an association of diverse organisms forming a closely integrated community. If you haven't received an embroidery kit, or you finished one and would like another one, please send your name and mailing address to info@metabolicstudio.org. And Cindy will put that information in the chat bar now. We decided to close the entrance to the Zoom space after the first 15 minutes of the reading to protect the flow and to keep a steady breath. These gatherings are being recorded through Zoom for archival purposes. We thank you for co-creating this opportunity to learn and to mend together during quarantine. Tonight, we'll read chapter 16 from The Mushroom at the End of the World by Anna Tsing. This 10-week series will focus solely on this one book, and our guiding question is what lives in the ruins we've made. Since the ongoing pandemic began, we have moved our weekly public studio practice to Zoom, where we have committed ourselves to learning and mending together. We invite you to receive these readings as a deep inhale, and we find that crafting together helps to receive these readings as meditation. We will share our screen, and we encourage you to read a section of the text aloud with us. When there is a pause in the reading, please feel free to unmute yourself and begin where the last person left off. Silence is golden, and there's no pressure to fill the transitional spaces while we enjoy a breath and continue crafting. Feel free to jump in and continue reading at your comfort level. You don't have to read, it's also fun to enjoy listening. And now I'll pass it over to James, where he will introduce tonight's questions.
Thanks, Jen. As usual, I will just share the discussion questions before the reading, and then I will share them once again after the reading before we go into our breakout rooms. So the first question is, what do you think about the patchy assemblage science that Tsing presents around Matsutake research? Isn't science supposed to be a universal snowball that incorporates information, all information over time? And the second question is, Japanese research suggests we need more disturbance to save Matsutake forests. US research suggests that disturbance threatens Matsutake harvests. Which one is right? What are the ideas or assumptions that help you choose? And with that, Jaime, do you want to pull up the reading for tonight? Thanks. Here's the caption for the photo. Reading forests, Kyoto Prefecture, Matsutake science in the field. The diagram is a map of host tree Matsutake relations over time. Through precise site specification and continuous observation, Japanese Matsutake science investigates ecologies of encounter. US scientists have tended to dismiss this research as description. Chapter 16, Science as Translation. As with capitalism, it is useful to consider science a translation machine. It is a mechanique because a phalanx of teachers, technicians, and peer reviewers stands ready to chop off excess parts and to hammer those that remain into their proper places. It is translational because its insights are drawn from diverse ways of life. Most scholars have studied the translational features of science only as they contribute to the mechanique ones. Translation helps them watch the elements of science come together into a unified system of knowledge and practice. There has been less attention to the messy process of translation as jarring juxtaposition and miscommunication. In part, this is because science studies has only too rarely been willing to stray outside of that imagined entity, the West. Science studies needs post-colonial theory to extend itself beyond the common sense of this self-imposed box. In post-colonial theory, translation shows us misfits as well as joins. Thus, Shiho Satsuka watches nature emerge in this kind of mix-up, unresolved translation. In transnational practices for interpreting nature, she shows shared training can go hand in hand with the eruption of difference. Translation, in this sense, creates patches of incoherence and incompatibility in science. To the extent that there are separate bodies of research, review, and reading, such patches may persist despite cross-cutting forms of training and communication. These patches are neither closed nor isolated. They shift with new materials. Their distinctiveness is not prior logic, but an effect of the convergence. Watching them returns me to the open-ended gatherings I call assemblages. Here, layered, inconsistent, and jumbled ontologies form even within the domain of the machine. Matsutake science and forestry are vivid examples. This chapter explores messy translation and the formation of knowledge patches through it. To begin with, if science is an international enterprise, why might there be national Matsutake sciences? The answer requires attention to the infrastructure of science, which segregates and even as it draws together. Matsutake science is national to the extent that it is tied to state-sponsored forest institutes. Forestry emerged as a science of state governance and continues a close relationship. Even in its cosmopolitan reach, forestry is national. Already, we are on the road to divergent assemblages, but the situation is even more peculiar. Why has research had so little influence across national borders? Why are the gaps so great despite common training, international conferences, and public domain publication? The answers here begin with the exclusion of Japan from North American and European common sense. Matsutake science and forestry are well established in Japan. Everywhere else, they are new, emerging with the commercialization of Matsutake. One might expect that Japanese Matsutake science would be the mother tradition that inspires new science elsewhere. Except in Korea, this is not the case. Scientists in Matsutake exporting countries are busy inventing their own Matsutake sciences. This is not the universal science we are taught to expect. Following its uneven development shows us science as post-colonial translation. Alternative performances of nature are at stake. Consider the different takes on human disturbance. Drawing from Satayama research, Japanese scientists argue that Matsutake forests are threatened by too little human disturbance. Abandoned village forests shade out pines, losing Matsutake. In contrast, in the United States, scientists argue that Matsutake forests are threatened by too much human disturbance. Reckless harvesting kills off species. This is not a debate. Despite the fact that both groups of scientists circulate internationally, there has been almost no communication about these positions. Furthermore, scientists in Japan and in the United States tend to use contrasting investigative strategies, particularly on the issues of site selection and scale. This removes the possibility of direct comparisons across their respective results. In this process, segregated patches of knowledge and research practice are formed.
That divergences matter is particularly evident when alternative sciences arrive in the same place. In China, Matsutake science and forestry are caught between Japanese and US trajectories. In the Matsutake forest of China's northeast, Japanese scientists have sturdy collaborations with Chinese counterparts. But in Yunnan, US experts in conservation and development have arrived in droves, and Matsutake science has been drawn into their sphere of influence. Chinese scholars see their job as catching up with international, that is, English language science. As one young scientist explained, the young and ambitious never read Japanese sources because out-of-date older scholars who have no command of English can read them. US approaches have had the power to set policy in Yunnan. Yunnan Matsutake have been entered on the CITES list of endangered species. Regulations against uncontrolled pickers and picking have been drawn up. Yet Yunnan's forests are nothing like US Matsutake forests. As I argued in chapter 13, they have affinities to Japan's Satayama. American experts do not recognize the landscape dynamics of such forests. But I am jumping ahead of myself. How did Japanese and US knowledge patches develop and then spread? Modern Matsutake science began in Japan in the early 20th century after World War II. Its champion was Kyoto University's Minoru Hamada. Dr. Hamada saw how Matsutake could enlarge science through its position at key intersections between applied and basic research, and between vernacular and expert knowledge. Matsutake's economic value generated government and private support. It also opened barely explored biological research trajectories involving interspecies interactions. To explore these interactions, Dr. Hamada was willing to listen to peasant experience. For example, he used the folk term shiro, castle, white, or plant bed, to refer to the mycelial mats, indeed, white defense-oriented growth beds in which Matsutake fungus grows. He learned from peasant knowledge about shiro, including early attempts to cultivate the fungus. Meanwhile, he explored the implications of shiro's interspecies relationships with trees, even as it raised philosophical questions. Might we think, he asked, of mutualisms as a form of love? Dr. Hamada's students and their students spread and deepened Matsutake research. One, Makoto Ogawa, initiated a program for Matsutake research in prefectural forest offices across Japan. Prefectural forest researchers addressed applied questions with simple equipment and field-based methods. They kept the dialogue between vernacular and expert knowledge lively and productive. Even university and institute-based researchers in this legacy have continued to address farmers, writing popular books and field manuals, as well as professional articles. At the heart of their questions is the decline of Matsutake since the 1970s, and the possibility of reversing this decline. On the one hand, they have worked to cultivate Matsutake in the laboratory. On the other, they have explored the conditions most conducive to its growth in forests. Thus, some have become involved with initiatives to save Japan's Satoyama forests. Matsutake cannot flourish in Japan without revitalizing the pine forests.
Thinking of Matsutake in relation to the decline of Satoyama led the researchers of this school to emphasize Matsutake's relationality not only with other species, but also with the non-living environment. Researchers investigated the plants, slopes, soils, light, bacteria, and other fungi in Matsutake environment. Matsutake is never seen as self-contained, but always in relation, and thus site-specific. To promote Matsutake, these researchers advise attention to the site and to a regime of human disturbance to favor pine. In neglected forests, more disturbance is needed. One pair of researchers called this the orchard method. Through favoring pine, Matsutake becomes a hoped-for weed. Meanwhile, both private companies and university-based researchers have been busy trying to cultivate Matsutake in laboratories. As long as prices remain high, what a prize that would be. For a decade, starting in the mid-1990s, Kazuo Suzuki gathered a high-profile research team at the University of Tokyo to investigate the conditions of Matsutake cultivation. The Suzuki Lab brought in international postdoctoral fellows, adding to the cosmopolitanism of Japanese Matsutake science. This research turned away from field-based methods to explore biochemistry and genomic studies. Results have not so far included successful cultivation of mushrooms. However, many insights have been gained, especially about fungus-tree relations. Relations remain central here. At one point, Dr. Suzuki brought mature pine trees into his laboratory, constructing basement cages in which root symbiosis could be observed and measured in detail. Why hasn't this research been influential in the United States? The separation between US and Japanese approaches to Matsutake science was not ingrained from the start. When Matsutake first came to the attention of forestry researchers in the US Pacific Northwest in the 1980s, they set out to find out about it from Japanese research. Central Washington University's David Hosford went to Japan to work with Hiroyuki Ohara, who had trained with Dr. Hamada. Dr. Hosford also had a number of scientific articles translated from Japanese. His work resulted in an extraordinary publication, co-authored with American colleagues, Ecology and Management of the Commercially Harvested American Matsutake. The publication is as close to Japanese research as anything published in the United States. The opening summarizes the history of Matsutake in Japan, and it proceeds to Japanese-style research in Washington State, which Ohara helped supervise. It even describes site-specific vegetation patterns in the U.S. Matsutake areas. However, it also includes a caveat. American foresters are likely to view the Japanese methods for enhancing Matsutake production in a different context, because forest management goals differ greatly. This caveat turned out to be fateful. All subsequent U.S. Forest Service research on Matsutake takes Japanese studies into account only by citing Hosford.
What was the block? One Pacific Northwest researcher told me that Japanese studies are not very useful because they are descriptive. In untangling what descriptive might mean and what is wrong with it, the cultural and historical specificity of US forestry research comes into focus. Descriptive means site-specific, that is, attuned to indeterminate encounters and thus non-scalable. US forestry researchers are under pressure to develop analyses compatible with the scalable management of timber trees. This requires that Matsutake studies scale up to timber. Site selection in Japanese research follows patches of fungal growth, not timber grids. Forest Service sponsored Matsutake research has addressed one big question. Can Matsutake as an economic product be managed sustainably? This question takes shape within the history of Forest Service efforts at timber management. In this history, non-timber forest products cannot be seen unless they make themselves compatible with timber. Thus, the stand, the unit of manageable timber, is the basic landscape unit US foresters can see. The fungal patch ecologies studied by Japanese scientists just do not register on this grid. The scale of US forestry research on Matsutake is adjusted accordingly. Some studies use random transects to sample Matsutake on a scale that is compatible with timber stands. Others build models through which fungal patches can be scaled up. These studies devise monitoring techniques to make Matsutake visible on the scale of timber's rationalization. One of the key questions of US Matsutake research concerns pickers. Are pickers destroying their resource? This question draws from US forestry history with its central query. Are loggers destroying their resource? This legacy suggested research on pickers' techniques. As with loggers, the point of impact is imagined as the harvest. Studies have found that raking the ground lessens future mushroom production. If mushrooms are gently removed, future production is unharmed. Pickers must be trained to harvest properly. The effect of other forms of human disturbance on mushroom harvests, e.g. thinning, fire suppression, or silviculture, has not been studied. It has not jumped to the minds of researchers worried about over-harvesting. This is US sustainability, a defense against greed-based popular destruction.
In contrast to Japan, in the US, foresters are concerned about dangerous human substance. Too much, not too little human activity destroys the forest. By chance, raking is symbolic of disturbance in both sciences, but with opposite valiances. Raking destroys Matsutake forest in the US by disturbing underground fungal bodies. Raking makes productive Matsutake forest in Japan by uncovering mineral soil for pine. These are very different forests with different challenges. Advocacy for pine is unnecessary in the conifer forest of the US Pacific Northwest, although opening the national forest to citizens thinning groups might be great. The contrast, however, raises issues other than which approach is right. It shows the productivity of basic questions and assumptions. Cosmopolitan science is made in emerging patches of research, which grows into or rejects each other in varied encounters. Returning to Yunnan, the influence of US approaches should now be clearer. This would be prime country in which to ask about relations between Matsutake, oaks and pines, and people. How might people sustain oak pine forests for matsutake? Instead, researchers imagine matsutake American style as a self-contained, scalable product whose accounting requires no attention to relations with other species. The questions that follow about sustainability ask not about relational forests, but about picker practices. Are pickers destroying their own resources? Oh, did we read this? When researchers ask villagers about declines in matsutake harvest, they do not ask about forests. The question of decline is addressed as if mushrooms inhabited the landscape alone. This is the American question, the question learned from the experience of rationalizing timber in the hopes of saving it from greedy loggers, but mushroom pickers are not loggers. Despite the hegemony of American frameworks among scientists, there are audiences for Japan matsutake research in Yunnan. Matsutake export businesses have ties to Japan because there is that is where the mushrooms go. Furthermore, Japanese science explores how humans can manage forests to increase the yield of matsutake mushrooms. In contrast, Americans explore how the mushroom harvest should be regulated to keep harvesters from destroying their resource. Japanese forest management promises more mushrooms for the market. American science promises fewer. Yunnan matsutake businesses have reason to prefer the Japanese paradigm. When a prominent Japanese scientist had his book on matsutake management translated into Chinese, it was the Matsutake Business Association in Yunnan, not the scientist, who translated it. And even after its translation, the scientists did not know about it.
All of this brings me to the first International Matsutake Studies Conference held in Kunming in September 2011. The Yunnan Matsutake Business Association organized it in concert with a team of Japanese scientists. Also in attendance were a group of North Korean Matsutake scientists and the North American-based Matsutake World's Research Group. The communication was made difficult by the fact that translators were provided only for the ceremonial opening session, and even then, the translators were overwhelmed by discussion in an unfamiliar field. The rest of the conference was supposed to be in English, but participants struggled with that standard. Still, language was only part of the problem. We each had completely different ideas about the point of Matsutake studies. Most of the Chinese participants hoped to promote Chinese Matsutake, and so they spoke of cultural values, new processing techniques, and efforts by the government to protect the mushroom. The Japanese participants, in contrast, were excited by the opportunity to see non-Japanese varieties of Matsutake, which might have been potential for cultivation. Some Chinese objected. They didn't want to be data. The North Koreans begged for copies of the international scientific articles blocked to them at home. After dancing around, this were the North American anthropologists with our meta commentary on science and society. We had different agendas. Yet in the 2 days of joint field work before the papers, we watched each other watching the forest. It was an amazing opportunity to see several kinds of science in action performed simultaneously. Chinese participants witnessed to the diversity of the forest fungal life and the newly cordial relations between peasants and international experts. Japanese scholars savored the rare chance to work with foreign fungal host tree relations. North Koreans were eager to learn from each new technique. No one thought this meeting was unproductive. We practice arts of listening and recognition of difference as the beginning of the work together.
There were also silences. Consider who did not attend. The U.S. Forest Service research has been curtailed several years before by cuts in federal funding. No U.S. foresters would be sent. Just across town, a Chinese research institution boasted several Matsutake researchers, and they also were not in attendance. This was a different crowd, assembled by Chinese businesses and Japanese scientists. In the confused translations and missing persons of meetings such as this, gaps and patches are maintained. Sometimes individuals make a difference in translating across patches, fertilizing new developments. The Kunming meeting emerged only because of the efforts of an individual. As a child, Yang Huiling met a Japanese anthropologist studying her Bai community in Yunnan. She went to study in Japan and became involved in the Matsutake trade. She facilitated the ties with Japanese scientists that made the Kunming meeting possible. Bringing together research stations, she had the opportunity to begin a new patch formation. Cosmopolitan science is composed of patches and is richer for it. Yet individuals and events sometimes make a difference. Like mushroom spores, they may germinate in unexpected places, reshaping patch geographies.
Thanks everybody for reading. I'll just reread the discussion questions before we go into our breakout rooms. So yeah, I also love that last sentence. It's really good. Japanese research suggests we need more disturbance to save Matsutake forests. US research suggests that disturbances threaten Matsutake harvests. Which one is right? What are the ideas or assumptions that help you choose? And the second question is, what do you think about the patchy assemblage science that Singh presents around Matsutake research? Isn't science supposed to be a universal snowball that incorporates all information over time? And with that, Jen, do you want to send us to our breakout rooms?
Yep, I'll send you all to your breakout rooms for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll all come back and have a larger general discussion. See you all soon. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I think we're all here now. I don't think anyone's still. Yep, looks like we're all back. So, would anyone like to begin with what they had discussed in their breakout room?
I can share a little bit. We didn't cover all of the questions. We got sort of absorbed into the question of how scientific knowledge is shaped by culture and also by forces like colonialism, where you have sort of dominant powers shaping the questions that are asked and the way that observing a system creates an impact on what you observe.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think like it's somewhat clear, like what you said, Rowena, about how you're observing it, or the fact of observation and the cultural norms that you're not necessarily aware of affect research, and kind of question the unity of science, or like the hegemony of science in a way, or homogeneousness of it. And there's like lots of other examples, like, to talk about how science has changed, like the changes from, discovering that the Earth rotated around the sun versus the other way around. But I think this one is really an easy one to swallow, at least for me, in terms of just seeing how both of these two countries are doing, what would be considered legitimate science by like an international definition of science by international science. But they're coming up with wildly different results. And it's literally because of a difference in Japan. It's much more connected to Matsutake in a much different way, and in a landscape, and are looking at site-specific stuff, versus the United States not really having that connection, and really just sort of translating Matsutake onto a timber scale, because it was like, oh, we once harvested timber. The only way we can look at this in an interesting manner is if we can also see Matsutake as timber.
Yeah, that was interesting to me in our breakout room, this sense of not understanding another culture. It's that it has something so different at its base. It's like when you're learning another language, and it goes from knowing what the words should be to suddenly you feel the construct lives differently in language that is not the same as English. And I had that same impression, just what Roxanne was telling us about the position of Matsutake in Japan. And it's like, we have no thing like that. So the science that is interested in it comes from completely different mindsets. And I suppose there's a way of understanding a culture by living in it, but it seems as deeply different as language.
Yeah, and I think that's really true. And I think, like just even the difference of the language, it's like it's a whole different mind, it's a whole different people, it's a whole different way of thinking. There's not really a comparison. Learning Japanese is not just learning a new grammar and construct. It's a different world.
And in our group, what we drew from some of those ideas of sort of cultural specificity was a distrust in the universal truths that can be found in science. And as a group, we felt that the idea of science as all-encompassing or absolute was necessarily challenged by the variety of cultural truths that were expressed and found through linguistic and cultural differences when looking at the same subject.
Yeah, it's kind of like the idea that nothing is ever true just universally in all cases. It's always true in relation to something else. So it a scientific body of knowledge is only true in respect to the methodologies and the context in which it was generated or measured. So, you know, the conclusions can't that's how you can get differing conclusions that might seem like they're mutually exclusive, but really they're just responding to different contexts that they were measured in.
Yeah, which was again going back to this theme of I guess non-specificity or like absolutes, and what they kind of talked about the reason for why European and American Matsutake science has not taken Japanese science as its mother in that tradition is that Japan has embraced, or Japanese research has embraced that very specificness of their research, and like the land itself, the vegetation, all of these things that are very localized and very focused. But it was found like, you know, that's not a cultural norm for, or a scientific norm for US research to be that specific about a site. There's always pressure to make these very large and grandiose theories and hypotheses about things. And I think that's a detriment to our knowledge and our ability to share knowledge and learn about the world.
Yeah, so in a sense, science can still be integrative. It can still, you know, make connections between all these different specificities and different methodologies and different conclusions, but it can't be homogeneous. Like, you can't just exchange one truth for another here and there, like what goes in North America goes in Japan. It's just can't be all one thing.
In our group, we had a brief conversation about that. It was so interesting that the conference that was put together, the people that came there was a particular subset, and it was based on, you know, the people that put on the conference. There was commercial interests, there were scientists as well. There was a lack of certain scientists because, you know, the US wasn't funding research at that time, and so it's just interesting to see how that particular sort of coming together of minds happened in a way. It's very unique because of, yeah, all these different influences.
Yeah, I really liked the hope of, I guess that same kind of comments at the end of that is of the art of listening, of it beginning with hearing the differences, like seeing the differences between all the different traditions and cultures and methods, whatever. And that's that's a place to begin to perhaps create something new. And it wasn't just an argument over who was right, even though it's kind of hard to not butt heads at that point, but that's a beginning point to creating like a new synthesis or new understanding, new nuance.
And it also means then, like, science is never like impartial or just removed from the context in which it's performed. Like the people who are doing it and the reasons why they're doing it matter. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you getting this set of information? Like, for what purpose? What are you going to get out of it? What, like, the context that you do the research in matters because it influences the conclusions, but also like it bears paying attention to why people are doing things and for what reasons, because certain kinds of research are more amenable to certain kinds of, like, whether it's timber logging or commercial mushroom production. It's worth considering why we're even doing those things in the first place, and should we be getting the conclusions and doing the science that those things require.
And also, we talked a little bit, Kaz in particular, about the funding of that and how funding of science also is related to this topic and generally, which I thought was a good point you made, Kaz.
I'm curious, can you elaborate on the funding part? Just like how it is it just how it differs based on what kind of motives people have to fund certain things?
Hi, James. Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, we were talking about how, well, I mean, particularly in the United States, you have to kind of, if there's a funding source, a lot of times you have to kind of tailor what the type of research is going to be in order to apply for the funding.
And you could take it, in another way too, is that certain types of outcomes, maybe not in this particular instance, but, maybe, but other instances I'm very aware of where specific outcomes that may not be universal thought of where funding can lead a conclusion, a hypothesis, and a set of further funding and legislation and policy and all that are heavily funded and skewed in one direction by, entities who want that to be the outcome and the believable general conclusion, So that was a little bit of a tangent, but.
I think it's related. I think it was kind of clear maybe one of the only few reasons the US forestry began paying attention to Matsutake is because there's perhaps money to be made if something's figured out in these forests that can no longer produce timber. But yeah, that's definitely a thing that was kind of heartbreaking to me when I joined a laboratory and I just saw how much of it is not really, it's kind of tailoring yourself to the highest bidder. And you kind of do that and you take a small percent to do what you are interested in, but mostly you're really just catering to these large organizations. So it's usually it's not funded unless some kind of millionaire or billionaire, Elon Musk, says he wants to figure out this, so a bunch of money starts going into that. I don't know what the solution is. I know there's some better. I know in the European Union, they do, lots of labs are just kind of guaranteed funding, but I don't know if that's that's a better system or not. But it's definitely problematic.
Is there a conclusion which one is more commercial? I mean, in a way, the author of this book, she's impartial, like she's just reporting this is the study that was done. And how we say, the best bidder gets more money. But what is better, to leave it as is and let all the forest how we say, grow freely or cut the forest. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which is the best. Best for the mushroom or best for the timber, you know. But
Yeah, that's a great point. I think she does try to leave it. I think some of her stuff leaks through as to what she finds, maybe like her bias a little bit, but she does a good job of hiding that or not trying to put that in your face. But I think this chapter, maybe the lesson that I take from it is that, you know, which one is better? That's the question. And again, it's kind of like there is no one homogeneous answer. Is that we have to respect different contexts and different site-specific realities, and that might, you know, it's not easy just to say like disturbance is good, like cut down the forests, or, you know, no, leave them alone, because we know in both cases one doesn't work in Japan and one doesn't work in the US.
I just know that I learned from each session, whatever it's coming. And so I'm very thankful for everyone participates, and I'm mostly listening, but it kind of makes sense. So if I would be Japanese, I would like this mushroom. I want this at the pine red tree or the oak tree in August to get it, and who can produce it via lab or via in the forest. I would like to have that. Like if I'm, you know, like I like to eat this kind of mushroom. But if I am a forester, I would like to have opportunity to gain money from the timber. So I'm just like, who is going to sponsor that? Interesting.
We need a Me Too movement for nature, like call out all the abusers of nature and something like that.
We all users, not abusers, but like now we know, we have the awareness, but still it's money. Money rules everything, you know. Money makes the world goes round.
It's funny, a colleague of mine who's a friend who's researching a film about the rights of nature in the different, like Ecuador and Bolivia and Colombia, different countries have, since they had the alternate to the Paris or to the climate talks, they wrote a constitution for the rights of, I'm sure folks on here are aware of it, but talking about actually doing a film about all the movements around the world coming together to do exactly what you just said.
Well, there's one in Florida happening right now. And there is, I think, a county that has given like a river rights or something. It's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the Ecuadorian constitution. It was written in like 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah.
Australia has a river now that has rights. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
I think the city of Santa Monica has rights of nature or rights of sustainability that protect the watershed that they've used to basically prevent people from digging wells, like privatized wells and stuff like that. Like, but it encompasses more than that, but it's actually, most of these things get written and they're hard to enforce, especially internationally.
Right.
But I know that the city of Santa Monica has been been able to put that into action in defense of its watershed.
There's also an interesting effort underway in the United States, specifically with quite a few tribes. I guess a lot of the tribes, when they were given sort of tribal lands, reservations and whatnot, they were sovereign nations supposedly, right? And they needed to have constitutions. And the US government kind of gave them like these boilerplate constitutions that, you know, they could sort of adapt to their particular needs, but a lot of people didn't really adapt them much. They just kind of took them as is, but they really are designed to be adapted. And so there's an effort right now, a group of lawyers and environmentalists that are trying to figure out a streamlined way to adapt those constitutions, and basically every single tribe that wants to could do it, and bring in these rights of nature into their constitution specifically, so that then the lands that they govern and that the constitution governs have rights of nature built into it. And then of course a lot of geologic features, like say, some tribes have parts of the Colorado River. So like if their constitution says the Colorado River is a living entity that has rights, then what does that mean for the relationship between a tribe as a sovereign nation and the United States? There might need to be ways in which the U.S. would have to respect that as well. So it's a pretty interesting development.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's so many levels.
Yeah.
When you think about it in the South, right? So stolen land, then slavery on top of that, and all these different levels of quote unquote ownership of property. And then you get down to the nature's rights. It's a pretty complex puzzle, definitely worthy of attention.
Yeah, I'm reading an interesting book. It's a science fiction book called The Ministry for the Future. And it's it kind of deals with this a little bit. It talks about like they're kind of tasked with enforcing the climate accords, but they also talk a lot about writing, going further and like writing for future generations, like not just future generations of humans, kind of going back to like the 7th generation concept, but writing enforceable like law. The hard part is obviously enforcing it, but for watersheds, for rivers, for future humans, for descendants of different animal populations, things like that. So it's an interesting thing that's been on my mind as well.
It does also make me think about how going through all the effort to set up protections and rights and justifications for why a certain community, whether it's ecological or I mean, an ecological community does include people. So an ecological community, shouldn't be affected this way or shouldn't be harmed in this way, when so much of the harm that's come to those places, like making those justifications in the language of the people who are responsible for, carrying out most of the harm, when most of that harm is carried out in the context of already just violating those rights that were there in the first place. Like so much of that, the problems that are there because, people just have the resources and have the momentum to step on protections that are there, even if they are there.
Yeah, which is like the really hard part about not only international law, but like these treaties that cities make, that tribes make, is that ultimately they're enforced. Like obviously I think it's a powerful statement, and I think it's a powerful movement towards changing how we think about things as a society and organize ourselves, and like really integrating that. But ultimately, if anybody wants to not do that and has the ability to, they kind of just do whatever they want. They get to live by it, tout it, or flaunt it whenever it's convenient or profitable.
Yeah, so it's got to go hand in hand with sapping people's ability to do that in the first place, to overstep those lines.
I would think if you know of resources and you can attach it together or send it to each and every participant, it will be nice, because for me, I would like to explore more of those links. I actually would like to know some of the previous session that you had, because I think it's very relevant and it just opened my mind, not just the English, of course. Thank you. I shared all the, like last session, which I joined, all the this parasite mushroom, you know, like the how it eats the ant, to my kids, to everyone, you know. So it just I am connected. I put my email, by the way, because I'm still in meditation groups from University of San Diego. My email is, I will put it again. So if anyone will send me my email, I will just attach the link so you can have a group meditation. Just, I like to share, because share is, we grow, we empower. That's how I feel it. And I'm very thankful for allowing me to participate in here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and being so generous.
Thanks for coming.
Well, I can share another mushroom video. If you like.
That sounds good.
Let's do it.
This one's a little less traumatic.
So pretty.
Do you know what kind of mushrooms these are, James?
No, but I can take a guess, which is judging by the setup and the way they look. These are probably magic mushrooms, I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, it said at the beginning, golden teacher.
Oh yeah, those are magic mushrooms for sure. Also, Jen asked a really good question when we were just doing our tech run on the mushrooms, like how long that video, the time lapse, was covering. And that's probably over 1 to 3 days, just to kind of give reference for how quickly mushrooms form and then disappear.
Would anyone like to share what they're working on? One thing I just wanted, I know we already talked about the embroidery of the week, but I just wanted to share one other little thing that I thought was so cool about this, because I had never thought about this. What Walker did was she only colored in the head and the beak, and then the tail, and the rest is an outline, which I just thought was so cool, because my instinct is just this color, 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 but actually it's really cool, just the outline too. So with that, I'll pass it to anyone else who wants to share what they've got going on.
I love the outline, but I feel like my own work is informed by the horror vacui, and I have to fill it in. So
I can understand, Rowena, because I have to tell you, as inspired as I am of this little section I started tonight, and I said to myself, you're not coloring it in. You're not coloring it in. And I've already picked out my accent color to color in. So, like, I get it.
Yeah, the embroidery from like the 1920s and 30s, it's all about like the um the personality of the stitch, and it's often just an outline, and it's so delicate, and it's got so much character just by the outline. So I really appreciate that, but I think I have the same fill-in
Yeah.
Japanese embroidery is very filled in.
Really? Do you have any references you could share maybe next week? Like any books that you could hold up or?
I can look into some stuff. There was an incredible exhibit at the was it the Japan Center or whatever last fall, not last fall, the fall before.
Yeah.
Was incredible. Like just magic of really different kinds of stitches and filling it in different ways. But definitely an outline done well says a lot. It's not just like you're not just drawing it. There's a lot of personality.
It's true.
What are you cooking, Yuval?
What was that?
Asking Yuval what he's cooking.
I'd like to see you too.
Wait, he's on mute.
It looks like hummus.
Oh, I'll unmute.
Hi everybody. I'm making a homemade tahina sauce.
Oh, whoa.
So it takes, if you ever done it, it takes a while. You keep adding water and more sesame and more water and more sesame paste. And you never know how long it's going to take, and you never know what's the quantity you're going to get.
What's Caroline working on?
Caroline's making beet salad.
Beet salad?
Yeah, white beet salad and heirloom basmati rice with jasmine star jasmine, and a little simple Provençal zucchini, onion, garlic sauté. Yeah.
It's nice that you're inviting us over for dinner.
Yeah. I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, we would love to invite you all.
You just have to add a little more water to the tahini.
Some lemon and garlic also.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
Actually, it's really good. Maybe I'll do that every Friday. I know that Emily does that quite often to cook. It's really nice.
It is nice. You just need to angle the camera at the food, not the ceiling.
Ah.
Oh my God, Jen.
It's hard. I mean, I'll get better.
Don't let her bully you, Caroline. You can.
No, but I know.
It's with love. It's with love.
No, Emily is super good at that. She's like right on her hands, like you can see she's a filmmaker.
Oh yeah.
She's like she knows. I'm like already in another world.
I'm totally inspired by the bookshelf.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's very special. It is. Yeah, France, Israel, America. Yeah, no, it's very special. We'll go through next time.
Maybe you could make a mushroom dish.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, in France, we do a lot of mushroom. It's very, we forage and the steppe. We have special mushroom too, like everywhere. But the steppe, I don't know what is equivalent to steppe in America. But they look so ugly. And they are full of animals inside, like really full. And the more they are full of these animals, the better they are. And so my dad used always to say, don't worry, it's gonna cook with it, you know.
Wait, what mushrooms are these, Caroline?
Pepper. It is called, it is spelled C-E-P-E-S. And they are very special. And we cook them simple with garlic and olive oil and, you know, parsley. But my parents, they actually fill the whole hat of the mushroom with garlic, like the whole hat. It becomes like, you know, like the sunflower seeds that we have at the studio.
Yeah.
Because they can be huge. They can be enormous. And so it takes a long time, all filled with garlic, but after it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think it's in the US. Well, they're known as boletes, but I think porcini is the closest it gets to here.
Maybe, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe. I should look at them.
Also another fungus that really can't be cultivated. So very special.
They are, and they grow mostly on the foot of the oaks. And I mean, we do have a lot of oaks here, so a different oak. Thank you for doing this every Friday.
Well, I was gonna say with everybody appetized and ready
Yes.
to eat, should we do our end of the week or end of rather the session question? Cool. Well, this week, pretty straightforward. It's what are the patches and gaps in science that you notice in the natural landscapes you encounter? So this could be things that you notice that you're like, oh my God, like this isn't supposed to be here. Nobody knows about this, which is something I think of. But anyways, with that, thanks everybody for reading and for talking and your lovely virtual presence, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Great
you.
seeing you.
Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.